The sky burned the day everything changed. Ash fell like snow on the fractured earth, and the wind carried the scent of ozone and blood. Above the shattered skyline, the remnants of a coalition warship hung motionless, gutted from within and vomiting fire into clouds. Below, in the skeletal remains of a hospital, Mara gripped the edge of a broken window and watched the city die. Her hands were blackened from smoke, nails chipped and cracked. A shallow gash marked her cheek, crusted with dried blood, but she didn't notice the pain. It was background noise now, like the distant shriek of warning sirens that hadn't shut off in 3 days. Somewhere behind her, a child cried. Quiet. Weak. Mara turned from the window and moved deeper into the hospital. The upper floors had collapsed days ago, but the lower wings still held. Just barely. She stepped through a door into a dark corridor, the walls lit by the trembling light of a salvage glow stick. In a makeshift room, she found them, 6 civilians huddled under blankets of salvage foil. 2 children, a wounded man with a mangled leg, a woman too exhausted to lift her head. She knelt beside them, checking pulses, redistributing the last of the water. "They're not coming back," the man rasped. Mara didn't answer. The man grabbed her wrist, eyes wide and fever-bright. "You said help was coming." "I said I would come back," she replied. The man's grip loosened. "You're military?" "Used to be." That was all she said. She stood and moved to the far end of the corridor where a stairwell had caved in. She waited there in silence, listening, not to the city, but to the breath between disasters. It was in that silence she heard the footfalls. She drew her weapon and aimed low. Friendly. A voice called softly. A figure stepped into the dim light. Tall, broad-shouldered, armored in scavenged plates. His helmet was dented and marked with soot, but Mara recognized the stance before the voice. "Kovac," she said. He removed his helmet, revealing a face hard with survival and eyes that hadn't closed in days. "Still breathing, I see," he said. "Barely." Kovac glanced down the hall. "How many?" "6, she said. 2 will make it with med support. The others—" He nodded once. "I found a way out." Mara tilted her head. "You found a hole in the coalition seed perimeter? They're moving forces south. I think they're repositioning. Probably gearing up for something bigger. Which gives us a window," she said. "A narrow one." Mara didn't waste time. She returned to the civilians, whispered quietly, helped the ones who could walk. Kovac lifted the injured without complaint. Together, they moved through the ruined lower levels and out into the snow-choked alleys that laced the city like veins. Each step was a gamble. Drones swept through the sky, their hum almost drowned by wind. Coalition patrols rolled through the streets in quad-legged walkers, scanning for movement, silence, hope. But the ruins had taught Mara how to disappear. The trick wasn't just stealth. It was intent. Move like you belong, like you're not afraid. Most of the time, it worked. They made it to the evacuation point, a collapsed transit hub half swallowed by earth. Kovac's contact, a woman named Desai, waited with an old mag skimmer. Its engine coughed but didn't die. As the civilians were loaded in, Desai looked to Mara. "This is the last run I can make," she said. "Coalition's tightening the net." Mara didn't argue. She helped the woman into the pilot's seat, gave the children a final ration bar, and stepped away. "You're not coming?" Desai asked. "No," Mara said. "There's something I need to finish." Kovac stayed too. Desai didn't press. She took off, the skimmer vanishing into the snow with a low whine. Mara watched until it was gone. "What now?" Kovac asked. Mara pulled out a small data cube from her coat. We recovered it from the ruins of the university tower. It has access codes, troop movements, maybe more, but we need a coalition uplink to broadcast it wide. They'll trace the signal in seconds, Kovac said. Then we make those seconds count. They trekked northwest, toward the uplink node buried in the old orbital transfer facility. The Coalition had fortified it, of course. Automated defenses, sniper roosts, patrols with orders to kill anything warm-blooded. Mara studied the perimeter for 2 nights before moving. The plan wasn't complex. It wasn't even good, but it was fast. Kovac created the distraction. A plasma charge detonated against the northern wall. As sirens screamed and drones rose in flurry, Mara slipped in through a ventilation shaft beneath the tower. The corridors were narrow and humming with enemy comms chatter. Twice she froze as soldiers passed feet away. At the core of the uplink tower, she planted the cube into the mainframe. The screen blinked to life. Earth Standard Interface, buried beneath layers of Coalition code. She typed. The upload began. 12%. Outside gunfire. Kovac's voice came over comms, sharp and clipped. They're moving fast. You have maybe 90 seconds. 35%. A drone flew past the door. Mara kept typing. 59%. Something exploded. Static in her earpiece. Kovac didn't respond. 73%. Footsteps outside the door. Mara turned, weapon raised, just as a Coalition soldier burst through. They fought in close quarters, his blade against her rifle stock, her elbow against his throat. She drove him into the console, breaking both his grip and his neck. 96%. Blood dripped from her temple. 100. She hit broadcast. A low hum filled the room. A surge of heat rolled off the console. Across occupied zones, Coalition command networks flickered. Encrypted logs, mission reports, casualty counts. Files they'd erased, rewritten, buried, poured into the ether. Truth. Weaponized. Mara pulled the cube, wiped the console, and ran. Outside, the storm had returned. Whiteout conditions swallowed sight, but not sound. She followed the noise. Distant gunfire, closer now, erratic. She found Kovac 2 blocks away, kneeling behind cover, bleeding from a shoulder wound, breathing hard but alive. They know, he said. They always knew, she replied. They moved fast, vanishing into the storm. Coalition forces swarmed the uplink node behind them, too late. The ghosts were already gone. By nightfall, the city's resistance channels buzzed with life. Fractured networks reactivated. Disparate cells began speaking again. And Mara's message, unfiltered, defiant, undeniable, echoed through them. This is not a call for peace. This is a warning. Mara sat in a cold corner of a derelict church that night, staring into the fire with hollow eyes. Kovac sat across from her, quiet, his shoulder bandaged. You think it worked? He asked. Mara didn't look away from the flames. I think it started something. In the silence that followed, hope stirred, not loud or triumphant, but like a spark. Hidden, waiting, and the ghosts waited with it. Snow fell in hushed flurries over the northern perimeter, blanketing the wreckage of a downed Coalition drone with a deceptive serenity. The world felt suspended in breathless silence, the kind only found in the dead hours before dawn. Beneath a grove of frost-laced trees, Mara crouched near the tree-lean, visor tinted against the cold glare reflecting from ice. She wasn't alone anymore. Beside her knelt Lieutenant Aaron Kovac, the Black Eagle sniper Desai had mentioned. He was tall, gaunt-faced, and unerringly still, with a demeanor that made silence feel like conversation. His rifle was older than hers, an Earth reliquary built for kinetic supremacy. There were stories about Kovac, though none confirmed. Some said he once stalked an entire alien warband for 3 days without eating. Others claimed he hit a moving target at 4 kilometers with crosswind. Mara had dismissed the rumors until she saw the way he breathed, exactly twice per minute, perfectly metered. They hadn't spoken much. Snipers rarely did. Ahead, nestled in the ruins of an old hydropower station, Coalition fire seekers had taken position. Mara's scope caught glimpses of them through infrared haze, tall, humanoid constructs with multi-limbed chassis, adorned in heat-reactive plating and bristling with counter-sniper tech. Their heads pulsed with rhythmic scanner sweeps. They were bred for one purpose: to find and kill anything that didn't conform to a Coalition battlefield algorithm. "We're not going to get more than one shot each," Kovac said, finally breaking the silence. Mara adjusted her scope, tracking the lead construct. "Then we make them count." The fire seekers were hunting them. That much was clear. But the AI was predictable, locked into pattern recognition cycles that could be exploited. Their flaw wasn't in their programming. It was in their confidence. Like everything the Coalition built, they assumed supremacy meant inevitability. A small flicker in Mara's peripheral caught her eye. Movement, subtle, too fast for a soldier, but just right for a recon drone. She held up 2 fingers. Kovac shifted, adjusting his position without sound, leveling his rifle toward the open corridor that bisected the facility. "Target marked," she murmured. Kovac didn't respond. He didn't need to. Both rifles fired at once. Twin bursts cracked through the silence, and 2 fire seekers dropped, metal skulls imploding, limbs spasming with residual charge. Chaos erupted as the remaining constructs scrambled for cover, unleashing arcs of plasma fire in blind retaliation. Mara was already moving. She rolled downslope, boots digging into snow for grip, slipping between pine and rock as enemy scanners lit up the grove behind her. Kovac flanked left, vanishing behind a splintered concrete pillar. The facility buzzed with alien code chatter, a rising digital scream of panic. Inside the ruined hydropower station, Desai monitored the skirmish from a remote uplink. His fingers danced across the keys, injecting signal interference into Coalition relay frequencies, muddying enemy coordination. "We got about 4 minutes before they call on air support," he said into the comm. "Recommend you vanish." "Already moving," Mara replied, breath clipped with exertion. "They're tracking heat signatures. You have anything to mask ours?" "Deploying now." From beneath the snowpack near the facility's outer edge, timed thermal charges detonated, releasing clouds of rapidly expanding vapor. The heat signatures exploded across the enemy's sensors, simulating a full retreat across 6 directions. Mara and Kovac slipped into confusion, racing beneath the veil of steam and sound. By the time the drones readjusted, their targets were gone. Later, deep in the forest bunker, Kovac sat cleaning his rifle with a reverence that bordered on ritual. Mara leaned against the opposite wall, drinking black coffee from a battered steel mug. The heater buzzed softly between them, pushing back the creeping cold. "You don't talk much," she said, not accusing, just stating a fact. Kovac looked up, eyes unreadable beneath the shadows. "Neither do you." Mara smirked faintly. "I talk enough." He nodded. "You're good. Clean shots. Controlled exfil. Better than most." She sipped again. "You expected different?" "I've seen good shooters. Not many smart ones." There was a pause. "Thanks," she said. He went back to cleaning. Mara studied him, noting the small scars along his jawline. Shrapnel, maybe. His hands moved with mechanical precision, not a wasted motion in the sequence. "Why do you do it?" she asked. He didn't look up. "Because someone has to." It wasn't dramatic, just honest. Mara set the mug down and leaned forward. "The Coalition's changing tactics. They're adapting faster. That's why you're really here, isn't it?" Kovac finally met her gaze. "I'm here because Command knows this region is critical. The uplink buried under this sector. It's the last data node still active on the northern continent. If they capture it, Earth goes dark. Mara felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. She knew about the uplink, had guarded it for weeks, but to hear it said aloud drove home the stakes in a way that statistics never could. "Then we don't let them take it," she said. "No," Kovac agreed. "We don't." Desai entered, holding a data pad with static still dancing across the screen. Command just confirmed coalition troop movement. 2 detachments advancing from the east. ETA 6 hours. Looks like they're bringing heavy walkers. Straight through the ridgeline? Mara asked. "Yeah, same route we used to snipe their commander." Kovac stood. "They want revenge." "Good," Mara said, already pulling on her gear. "Let them get close." Desai blinked. "Wait, you're not staying here? There's no cover out there once they deploy the walkers. That ridge is exposed." "That's why they won't expect us to be there again," Kovac said, slinging his rifle over his back. Mara nodded. "We'll lead them into an ambush. Use the uplink's transmission burst as bait. Force them into a tight corridor. Then we bleed them." Desai looked between them. "You're both insane." "Not insane," Kovac said. "Prepared." Hours later, dusk fell like a curtain over the forest. Mara and Kovac lay embedded beneath the frozen ledge of the ravine, cloaked in active camo, sensors tuned for movement. Below them, the coalition convoy crept forward, massive bipedal walkers striding with thunderous weight, flanked by fire-seekers and drone swarms. Mara checked her sight line. 50 meters from kill zone. Kovac gave a curt nod. "Wait for the burst." Desai's voice crackled in her ear. "Uplink spike in 3, 2, 1. The signal burst lit the area like a beacon. The walkers halted, reorienting sensors. The moment of hesitation was all Mara needed. She fired. The bullet hit the lead walker's stabilizer joint. It buckled to one side, crashing into the ravine with a seismic groan. Kovac's shot took down a drone array, sending the swarm into disarray. Suddenly, the tight pass was an echo chamber of noise. Metal clashing, orders shouted, sensors flaring. The coalition forces, caught in the narrow kill zone, tried to maneuver, but there was no space. Plasma bolts hit rock and tree, searing through the mist, but the shooters were ghosts. Invisible, untouchable. When the last walker detonated, its core ruptured by a thermal slug. The enemy routed. Retreat was disorganized, panicked. The air stank of ozone and oil. From their perch, Mara watched the survivors stumble into the trees, limping back the way they came. She exhaled slow, controlled. "Status?" Desai's voice buzzed in. "Clear," she replied. "They're running." And the uplink. Kovac tapped his comm. "Still ours." They lay in silence a moment longer, staring at the empty path where death had passed. Then, as one, they slid back into the forest, vanishing into its depths. The war wasn't over. But tonight, they had made the impossible look inevitable. And that, Mara thought, was how you taught monsters to fear the dark. Snowmelt dripped in slow rivulets down the exposed edges of concrete, staining the bunker's inner walls with the illusion of rusted veins. Mara stood near the central uplink terminal, arms crossed, watching a flickering satellite projection display the enemy's renewed movement. The coalition hadn't retreated for good. They'd regrouped, adapted. Outside, a blizzard howled, reducing visibility to meters. The weather would ground both human and coalition aircraft, but Mara knew it was temporary shelter. A pause in the music, the kind that made you check your gear 3 times before sleeping with one eye open. Kovac entered without announcement. His silhouette moved like a shadow with purpose. Quiet, smooth, dangerous. He carried a bundle of salvage tech wrapped in thermal cloth. "They've learned," he said, setting the bundle on the table. "That last skirmish? They sent in scouts with dampened heat signatures. No drones. Just infantry. Real quiet. Mara shifted her weight. How close? 6 clicks when I spotted them. They didn't follow me back. But they're probing now. No more charging in blind. Desai, hunched over the uplink, frowned. They're triangulating. We've got at most 2 days before they breach the ridge again. This time, they'll do it right. Mara looked at the projection. Red markers blinked across the valley. Too many for their 3-person team to repel with sniper traps and signal interference. They'd bleed the enemy, sure, but not enough. They want this node offline more than anything. Desai muttered. It's not just about winning anymore. It's about erasure. Kovac's Saturday. Then we need to make the cost unbearable. They didn't speak for a moment. Each absorbed the map differently. Desai saw data, Kovac, terrain and flanking vectors, Mara, opportunity. She leaned in, tapped a narrow bottleneck where 2 cliffs pinched the terrain into a shallow defile. They'll send heavy infantry through here if they want a fast advance, she said. It's the only route they haven't committed to yet. Desai squinted, because it's unstable terrain. Landslides. You'd have to be suicidal to march a battalion through that without full clearance. Or desperate, Kovac added. Mara met his gaze. What if we made them desperate? By dusk, the plan was in motion. Mara led a solo sabotage run to a coalition supply point they'd marked during previous recon. A small, automated depot built into the shell of a broken rail hub, guarded by 2 fire seekers and a patrol drone. She moved through the storm like a phantom. Snow muffled her footsteps. Wind swallowed the hum of her active camo rig. She crept up the slope, pulled the suppressor over her rifle's barrel, and watched. Timing mattered. The drone passed overhead. She waited 3 breaths, then fired. The first fire seeker collapsed. Circuit skull pierced. The second whirled, but Mara was already moving, sprinting through the wreckage. She vaulted a broken rail car and landed behind Construct just as it opened fire. Too late. Her knife drove into the seam under its arm and up into its processor core. It spasmed, then dropped. She wasted no time. Inside the depot, she rigged 3 thermal charges, set with signal-activated detonation. When the patrol drone circled back and found its comrades dead, it would trigger a distress beacon. The coalition would think the humans were attacking their supplies. It would provoke retaliation. She returned to the bunker by nightfall, frost clinging to her armor. Desai was already monitoring the enemy's chatter. They're rerouting, he said. Exactly like you guessed. Command structures inflamed. They think we got a whole unit operating in the northern sector now. They're redeploying through the defile. Kovac gave a small nod. Then we break the mountain. They had one last ace. The old hydro tunnels beneath the cliffside. Cracked and dry for decades, they wove beneath the ridgeline like forgotten veins. If the team could plant their final charges correctly, they could trigger a control collapse just as the enemy passed through. Simple in theory. In practice, it was madness. Still they went. Hours later, deep underground, Mara crawled through an unstable shaft with a pack of charges strapped to her back. The air was stale and bitter, tainted with ancient mold and iron. Every movement sent echoes racing into black. Behind her, Desai followed, grumbling about seismic tolerances. This place is a crypt, he muttered. You know one good tremor, and the whole thing could fall with us inside, right? Mara kept moving. Then, don't make a tremor. They reached the chamber, an old structural intersection where 3 tunnels converged beneath a fault line. Mara set the charges methodically, marking detonation sequences with adhesive tags. Each click of her toolkit echoed with finality. Desai watched her work, jaw tense. You ever think about what happens if they send an air cover first? If the walkers come later? I don't think about maybes, she replied. Desai hesitated. It's just we can't hold this forever. No, she said. We just hold it long enough. Back in the bunker, Kovac prepped their final fallback routes. He didn't ask how it went. Mara didn't offer. Instead, they checked gear, ammunition, medical packs, emergency comm links. Mara sat beside him, tightening the strap on her thigh holster. When they breach, we hit them hard, then fall back to Phase 2, collapse the ridge. Then, if anything survives, we bleed the rest inside the kill box. Kovac nodded. We hold the node at all costs. And if we can't? Desai asked quietly from across the room. Mara didn't answer immediately. She stared at the uplink terminal, its faint glow illuminating the steel walls. Then we deny it, she said. The morning was red. The storm had passed, leaving behind a landscape of broken snow and bone-white silence. The coalition force marched in perfect formation through the defile, 100 strong, infantry in synchronized lines, walkers looming behind. Drones swept the sky. Mara stood atop the overlook, watching them approach through her scope. Kovac was 50 meters east, waiting for her signal. Desai was in the control room, fingers poised over the detonator. Almost there, she whispered. The enemy entered the defile, head scanning, weapons primed. Mara gave the signal. A thunderclap split the earth. The ridge exploded in a bloom of dust and rock. Boulders crashed down, crushing the front ranks. The center collapsed inward, swallowing troops whole. Walkers tumbled sideways. Legs snapped like twigs. Panic rippled through the formation. Kovac opened fire. Each shot was deliberate, precise. Mara joined in, picking off squad leaders and relay drones. The coalition's precision unraveled into chaos. Soldiers screamed in dozens of tongues, their comms scrambled by Desai's signal surge. Minutes felt like years. Then quiet. The survivors fell back, dragging wounded, leaving behind twisted wreckage and scorched snow. Mara lowered her rifle. Her breath came in short, harsh bursts. We did it, Desai said over comms, his voice shaking. God, we actually... Hold that thought, Kovac interrupted. We've got movement. South slope. Fast. Mara spun her scope. Not infantry. Something else. A single coalition hunter drone, unlike the others, sleeker, faster, clad in dark plating that shimmered like oil. It moved low to the ground, too fast for a walker, too intelligent for a drone. It dodged thermal markers, ignored signal bait. It was headed straight for the uplink. Mara's gut went cold. She hit comms. Desai evac now. You've got a breach-class infiltrator inbound. Desai's voice was quiet. I see it. He didn't run. Instead, he keyed the uplink's manual purge protocol. Mara's eyes widened. What are you doing? Buying you time, Desai said. Go. She sprinted. Kovac followed without a word. The world behind them shook, an explosion deeper, hotter than before. Not the uplink. The core. The uplink was gone. Desai was gone. Mara collapsed behind a ridge, chest heaving, staring at the ash plume rising in the distance. Kovac sat beside her, silent. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared, until the snow began to fall again. They hadn't won, but they hadn't lost either. The game had changed, and tomorrow the ghosts would fight again. Snow muffled the edges of the world. The aftermath hung in the air, smoke and frost twining together like ghosts reluctant to leave the battlefield. Mara moved through the ruined uplink site with mechanical precision, each step deliberate. Her boots crunched over scorched metal and melted snow, past fragments of the uplink dish scattered like bones. Desai's final transmission looped silently on her personal recorder, Words reduced to static and a last whispered go. There was no body to recover, only scorched ground and silence. Kovac stood near the crater's edge, his back to her, motionless. He hadn't spoken much since the explosion. They both knew the price of survival. Still, knowing it didn't ease the weight pressing on their ribs. She came to stand beside him, and neither looked at the other. "They'll be back," Kovac said finally, voice gravel thin, "with something worse." "They always come back," she replied. He turned slightly, enough that she could see the edge of his profile beneath his hood. "So what's next?" Mara knelt beside the wreckage, pulling free what remained of the uplink's encrypted core. The casing was fused, melted, but the backup data drive blinked with a faint blue light. "Decide out the node scrubbed," she said, "but we still have copies. Records of what they were trying to erase. Coordinates, comms, unit profiles. The truth." Kovac nodded once. "Then we give it to someone who can use it." She didn't reply. She was already thinking ahead. Routes, contacts, safe houses. There was no base to return to. No command structure waiting for updates. Earth had gone dark weeks ago, and their last contact with other surviving cells had ended in static. But there were still humans out there. Somewhere. And the truth was power. They moved out that night, leaving the crater behind. A blizzard crept in, erasing their footprints, as though the world itself conspired to cover what had happened here. The two surviving ghosts vanished into the white. 5 days later, a stolen Coalition transport skittered through orbit above the outer rim of the ruined city of Tarsa. Once a gleaming trade hub, now a graveyard of black glass towers and collapsed sky rails. The ship groaned with atmospheric entry, its outer shell pitted and marked with scavenged paint. Inside, Mara stripped off the alien interface helmet and pulled oxygen into her lungs like it was fuel. Kovac leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. "You sure about this drop?" "No," she admitted. "But the signal we picked up came from the university ruins. Someone's broadcasting on an old Earth protocol. Could be bait. Probably is." He offered a humorless smile. "Then we'll spring it carefully." They descended on foot after landing the ship in a camouflaged ravine. The university complex stretched ahead, twisted architecture half sunken into the earth, its spires shattered, classrooms flooded and frozen over. A human structure swallowed by alien war. Inside, they found signs of life. Scorch marks, recently disturbed ash, makeshift beds, a trail of ration packs leading toward the ancient library dome. Mara's instincts screamed trap. Still, they moved forward. Inside the library's hollow shell, a fire crackled weakly in a pit of rubble, and beside it, a figure. Human, young, mid-20s, pale skin, wrapped in scavenged armor pieces and a threadbare data cloak. He looked up, eyes wide but not afraid. "You're early," he said. Mara raised her weapon. "Start talking." The man raised his hands, unarmed. "Name's Jalen. I've been listening for weeks. You're the ones who hit the uplink node at Dre's cradle, right?" She didn't confirm. Jalen kept speaking anyway. "I picked up your data burst. Scramble message embedded in Coalition bandwidth. Clever. Took me 3 days to decrypt. You uploaded a kill list." Mara's mouth tightened. And it matches my list. You've been fighting, not just hiding. That makes you different." Kovac stepped forward. "Who are you with?" "Used to be Recon Unit 9 out of Orbit Station Jericho. Rest of my team didn't make it. I've been laying low, finding survivors, building something." Mara watched him carefully. "You say that like you're recruiting." "I am," he said. "Or trying to." She didn't lower her weapon. "Why should we trust you?" Jalen pulled a hard drive from his cloak and tossed it gently across the rubble. Mara caught it. Coalition forward base locations, he said. Names of human collaborators. Drone signal patterns. I've spent a year collecting it. I want to fight, not just survive. But I need people who know how. Mara glanced at Kovac. He gave a barely perceptible nod. She lowered the weapon. Then you're coming with us, she said. The three of them camped that night inside the library's shattered dome, where frost painted the glass in splintered constellations. Jalen spoke in low tones, outlining his findings, the flickers of resistance he detected across other regions. Scattered voices, broken transmissions, hints of unity waiting to be forged. There's a pattern, he said. The Coalition wants us divided, quiet, scrubbing records, hitting communication nodes. But the more we resist, the sloppier they get. They're afraid of something. Mara stared into the fire. Not of us. No, Jalen said. Of what we know, what we remember. Kovac added wood to flames. They erased cities, languages, entire cultures. And they failed, Mara said, because we're still here. The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy with decision. They had a direction again, a purpose. In the following weeks, the trio moved through the ruins like ghosts with a mission. Jalen's intel gave them targets. Coalition outposts fell, silently, methodically. Each raid recovered tech, data, weapons. But more importantly, they found survivors. A woman with burned scars leading a network of underground engineers. A pair of teenage brothers who dismantled enemy drones and reprogrammed them to deliver medical supplies. An old sergeant who'd lost an arm but trained 10 others in guerrilla tactics with the patience of a monk and the bite of a wolf. Each one carried stories of destruction and defiance. Mara listened, watched. She didn't ask to be their leader. But every time they moved, they looked to her, and slowly, the ghost became something more. When they struck the main relay station at Varnak Ridge, they had a team of 16. They moved under cover of storm, their signal disruptors masking their presence. The objective was simple: hijack the Coalition broadcast feed and send one message. Just one. Kovac and Mara led the breach. Jalen held the comms. When the last drone fell and the relay was theirs, Mara stepped to the console. She looked into the lens, into the unseen eyes of the galaxy, and spoke. This is not a call for peace, she said. This is a warning. Kovac stood beside her, arms crossed. We are not extinct. We are not broken. And we are not afraid. Jalen triggered the feed burst. The Coalition scrambled to shut it down, but the signal bounced off hijacked satellites, mirrored through half-broken comm arrays. Across occupied worlds, the words rang, and people remembered. They didn't have ships or armies or pristine banners. They had scars, fire in their bellies, and a name whispered with growing reverence through the ashes. Ghosts. That night, around a fire built from the shattered remains of a Coalition console tower, Mara sat with her team. She looked at each of them, new faces, old ones, battle-hardened and just begun, and spoke without ceremony. This doesn't end here, she said. No one expected it to, but for the first time in a long while, the future didn't look like a grave. It looked like fire, and rising, and the ghosts marched forward into whatever came next.